Hey everybody, welcome back to Nighthawks. This is a master study that I am so excited to share with you. This is my ultimate, all-time favorite painting by Edward Hopper. And trying to get the licensing for this was challenging, but here we are, and I'm so glad that I get to share this piece with you. Okay, so let's talk about Nighthawks and the colors that we were using here. So the primary colors in this piece that are really like drawing the eye are the red and the green. And as we've talked about before, the red and green are opposite on the color wheel. So it really does create this nice contrast, a harmonious contrast, because they're opposites but they're complementary. And what I'm going to do is just start blocking everything in. I started the whole piece off by just laying in the dark blue background. And I think this is always like the best way to begin, because by filling up the composition with some kind of layer of color, whether it's like a local color or whether it is the dominating color within a piece, like when you put that in, it's going to affect all the colors on top of it. And I wanted that to happen because you want it to appear that all of this is happening within the same world. So let's talk a little bit about the scene that we're looking at first, and the story, and how the composition really helps with the storyline. So we're here in the city, and it's empty. There's nobody on the streets. The only people out at this moment in time are the people in this little diner. And it's very simplified. You know, a real diner would probably have more things on the countertops, including food and whatever, more things. So this could be part of the story. Perhaps it's the end of the night where everything has been put away, and these are the final like stragglers. And when they go home, the worker, the guy in the white, is going home too. But there's so much mystery here, and the mystery really is that are opposite. We talk about contrast. So let me give you an example about like how to create mystery. One would be, we're in a place where there's usually a lot of people and there's nobody there. Why is there nobody there? So the next thing is, well, it's nighttime, it must be super late. We can come up with these conclusions based on the information that has been given to us, right? So you're creating mystery by kind of doing the opposite of what we would expect from something. And so we have the opposite of, there's no one in the city, even though this is taking place in the city. The next thing is like looking at the composition and knowing that it's nighttime. How can you tell it's nighttime? The color of the buildings, you can tell that things are lit up, but they're lit up by shadows, and the shadows and the highlights they're very harsh. It looks like they're harsh because of street lamps, or because of this specific spot that is very bright, and the only thing awake in Philadelphia or wherever that is giving this electricity. It's like creating electricity within this piece, this very light and bright element compared to this very dark and sleepy city. Another thing to consider is just the shapes of everything. Anytime we have diagonal lines, triangles, which we sort of are getting with this diner, it does look as though it's a triangle that is kind of being cut off. And even though we're not seeing it the full extent of that tip coming off to the side because it is cut off because of the shape of the building, we as the audience still get that feeling of a triangle based on these two lines that are coming together to kind of create that shape. So it's creating this energy in the piece just by using these dynamic lines. Next, we have the triangle in the bar top. And again, it's being cut off on the right hand side, but we don't need to see the extension of that bar top. All those lines coming off the edges of this piece are just an extension of our vision. And we have to think about this as well, is like, we are a fly on the wall, or we are a person walking on the street seeing this event taking place, right? So it's our point of view, and I think the canvas or the piece of paper or whatever is really interesting, because our point of view is really being dropped off in a very severe cut on that edge. Where normally when we're living life, we have our peripheral vision kind of giving us more information, even though we're focused on what's ahead of us. But we do know in these art pieces that the world is still extending beyond the frame, our picture plane. Okay, so now I'm adding in this very bright yellow color with a little bit of white added to it. This is one of the reasons why I really love this gouache. I love it because if we were even using acrylic, I noticed that with acrylic, even though it is pretty opaque, it's really hard to get this kind of opacity with acrylic. Gouache, well, this very specific type of gouache that I love, because it does dry and does not reactivate with water like normal gouache does, you can really punch your colors out in these layers. You could, it's very graphic, almost like a graphic design, has like a graphic design element to it. It makes sketching a lot easier as well. But anyhow, adding this bright yellow, you're seeing the diagonal lines and more of these triangle shapes being put together. We have the triangle of that yellow coming all the way across with this like two triangles kind of coming together and butting up in the middle to create a vertical line. And I'm trying to look more at the original piece, that even in the areas where there's more like rectangles and squares, we still have the shadow lines cutting through them to give it more of a triangular shape, or these angled lines, and even the angled lines of the windows based on the perspective. It's not straight on, it's even just slightly curved and slanted. So it's very geometric, and at the same time it feels very organic. It feels like very realistic, and like even though we're not living in this era, we get an idea of what it would feel like to be here and what the air smells like and the sounds of the city we might be hearing, even though it may be occurring blocks away. And we even can put ourselves in the situation of like, what kind of conversation are they having inside? Who are these people? Are they old friends? Are they secret friends? Are they meeting for the first time and, you know, talking about, what are they talking about? When you start adding mysterious elements to your piece like this, where people begin to say, why is it this way? What are they talking about? What are they doing? Any elements of mystery will stop your viewer in front of your piece to get those questions answered. And I really do think that is a part of composition that we don't talk about often, because I think when we talk about composition, we like to talk about the things that you can do to make your piece like look better. But a lot of composition is really about what is going to stop your viewer in front of your piece. I know I mentioned this in one of the lessons, but you really are like a magician. And like magicians have all their sleight of hands and misdirections in order to get you to go exactly where you want them to go, so the trick works. And you know if a magician is good or not that experienced, because if they're really good, you have no idea how they did it. You have no idea how they made that happen, and it does create this magic. And the same is true for artwork. And the more experienced you get, you really do become a magician. You're like, wow, why do I like this piece so much? It looks so good. It's because they're experienced magicians. They know exactly where you're looking and exactly what you're feeling, because they designed it that way. And it's exciting to know that you have that kind of power within your artwork. And you can really use that to influence the whole world if you want to, or if, you know, like you make a piece that really is that's striking. And another thing to consider is the pieces that you are creating may not be influential until maybe a few years, maybe a decade. That can be a little bit discouraging, you know, at times, to think about, like, maybe the work that you're creating now is not the right audience because the ideas that you're coming up with are a little bit too ahead of your time. But that shouldn't stop you from creating. All that means is that just keep doing the work that you're doing. Just keep doing the work that you're doing, because if there are themes, you know, that people don't understand at the moment, but maybe they're even starting to, or there's an audience that does understand the themes that you're talking about. If you have any kind of audience, or if there are other like-minded people like you, then keep doing the work that you're doing. Because as the world evolves, you look back on pieces, and because of the times and the change in the moment or whatever, the pieces that you're creating, you just can't predict the future. And I guess one example is Edward Hopper became a very influential artist of the pandemic, because his pieces really gave people the feeling of what it's like to be in lockdown. There's a lot of this alienation and separation between people, even though we're so close to each other, but feeling so far away. And I wanted to add Edward Hopper, not only because this piece is like my favorite art piece, but because he is such an artist of the time now. You know, and his work was created in the 1940s. So, yeah, it really is so bizarre about how art works, you know. Certain songs that at the time were like, oh, this is the worst song ever made, and there are like articles written about it, or movies being made. And I know one was like Citizen Kane, right? When Citizen Kane came out, it was like seen as like one of the worst movies ever made or something. And then and now it's like the best movie ever made, according to like film studies and film people, which the movie is brilliant. The movie is really good, and it's funny, and it's interesting, and if you haven't seen it, definitely give it a try. I know it's not everyone's cup of tea, but it's a really good movie. But anyhow, it really is all about the audience, right? Like, I say it's a really good movie, and you watch it and you're like, that was the worst movie I've ever seen. They were right. It was horrible. And then you might find your favorite movie to be something that I absolutely like cannot stand. I'm not even going to go there. I know you're probably like, what would that movie be? I'm not going to say, because it's not my place. Not my place. But yeah, this is why it's very important to have different styles of artwork and to have different ways of creating and looking at the world. It's because we're different. It's not our job to all be the same, and how horrible and boring would that be? But how amazing is it when you actually open yourself up to the opportunity to allow yourself to like a piece? What I mean by that is like, we're talking about in the last piece about how we like to put everything into boxes, right? And, you know, I'm not an abstract artist, although I would love to do more of these studies and kind of copy more abstract artists that I like, because I think it would help me with my own work, breaking out of my realism problem that I think I have. For the longest time growing up, I felt like I wanted to be a realist artist. So then I trained myself to be a realist artist. And now that I'm here, it's like, well, now what? It's not really, like, now that I did it, I know I can do it and I can create more work that looks real, but I'm not even really sure I like it for me anymore. I would love to be more expressive. I would love to, you know, like, combine my styles of artwork that I like to look at with like my own style, with my own art. And I think right now as your teacher, we learn from each other, right? So I think we also have to be very careful with how we critique other artists, because it is so subjective. And the person creating the artwork, it's like the birds that we were talking about before in the last art piece. It's almost alien trying to put yourself into someone else's shoes sometimes, because, like, for instance, like when we say the word dog, okay? My idea of what a dog looks like comes from my childhood memories of my childhood dog. And now if you think about every single word in existence and how many different symbols we have from those words, and then think of all the different languages and all the different interpretations of words based on region, based on where you live, based on everything. It's amazing that we can communicate at all, right? So now try to teach somebody art, okay? And, you know, this is one of the hardest things. This was probably the hardest thing for me as an art teacher at a school environment was, man, like as a teacher, I could teach the kids the way I felt like I wanted to teach them, you know, what I thought was important, and then basically like processes and systems that work, and they can take those and use them to help their own style. But people that are not really artists, like administration, that are that don't know about art, think that you teach art by saying this is good and this is bad, right? And that's just not how art works, really. I mean, you can say that this doesn't feel right at the moment. I think I would tweak it or adjust it. Or what if you shifted this element over here because, you know, whatever. Like, there are tricks to help you make it appear like more organized or whatever. But saying someone's work is good or bad is just like, it defeats the point of art. You say it's not for me, or I don't get it, you know, you can admit that you don't understand it, but that would be like going on a hike, and you see like this tree that was like split in half because of like old age, or maybe it was burned in a fire. And you're like, man, you know, like that dead tree just ruined this whole walk for me. That tree is bad. I don't like it. Like, how ridiculous would that be, right? So, yeah, like all these things, like when it comes to beauty, it really is like in the eye of the beholder. There is no real good or bad, but there are ways that we can be more of like a magician and can say like, here's my idea. How am I going to develop this in a way that is going to make the most amount of people, where I know exactly where they're going to look at. I know how it's going to make them feel. How are you going to be a really good communicator in your artwork? Hopefully that made sense, because I think it is really challenging to teach art, because everyone thinks that by being an art teacher, by the end of the course, you're a good art teacher because you know how to draw. I took a horse drawing class, so I know how to draw a horse, right? So you have to be a good teacher and teach your students how to draw a horse. But I think with composition, it's a little bit more challenging than that. It's not only the shapes and the colors and the lines, which, yeah, that is part of it. But it's the story, it's the idea, it's the style, it's the artist. Like, there are all of these things that are going to help you create a good composition. And another thing that we were talking about before is like of the time. It might be of this time, or it might be of the past, it might be of the future. And just like fashion, you know, some ideas come back into fashion years later. So you do you. Don't try too hard to fit into the what is in right now when it comes to your artwork. The best thing that you can do for your own artwork is to figure out what you like, what color palettes you like, what styles, what lines, what shapes, all these things that make you you. What makes you you, and how would you put those ideas onto your paper, your canvas, your music, your films, your sculptures, whatever. Okay, so as far as composition goes, this part of the piece I thought was super fun, because if we're looking at the colors of the people, there is a certain element of color between the two of them. There's this like blue color of the men that are sitting at the bar stool, and this vibrant red, beautiful woman. She is red, right? And so I knew that when I painted her, I was just going to do a block of red first. Let that dry and then start painting in the details, because her hair is red, her lips are red, her dress is red, and she's this siren, right? And so here we go. I'm going to start painting her in, and I just made it super simple. I think, you know, like a few lines here and there really are all she needed. And you can tell here, you can tell that this piece is Nighthawks, even though there is not very much detail, right? I think part of the beauty of this piece is it's so simple. It's so simple, but not at all either. Like, have you ever noticed that a lot of things that are elegant and beautiful are very simplified? Just down to the basics and down to the heart of what makes it so beautiful. And there's that saying, you know, less is more. And of course, I mean, there's also people that say more is more. Like, really, you know what I'm saying? It's all about the eye of the beholder. But anyhow, I think the reason why this piece works is because it is a less is more piece. Where in the previous piece that we did, the Bewitched Mill, I think that was almost like a more is more. That one was just like hitting you with so many like things, color, shape, themes, and storylines, but it worked so well. Okay, how are we doing here? We have about 5 minutes left. And at this point in time, it really is just refining the details now. If we're looking at the perspective, if you're not familiar with perspective and how you would create something to look like it's moving off into the distance, there's so many good YouTube videos out there. I know I'm going to plan on making a perspective class sometime in the future. But you really want to start with 1-point perspective, and then from there move to 2-point perspective. You could do most of your work in 1 and 2-point perspective. And then it does go to 3 to 4, and that, I mean, like if you look at comic books, they're masters of perspective drawings and paintings and illustrations. That may be something that you really love and you would love to add to your artwork. But for most of the art that you want to create, I would say 1 and 2-point perspectives are really what you need to know. And you can find those lessons on YouTube for free. There's some good ones out there. And I think another great thing to acknowledge is that there's a lot of free information out there. And it is important to note that if you want to learn how to do something, information is out there. And yes, it may be harder. Like when you're looking for free information, it is a lot of extra work for you to tie all the pieces together, right? And I think, you know, taking a course like the one that you're taking right now, like I did the work for you. Like what are all the things that would be important for a composition class? How would we make it that into a one package deal where you get the full experience? But the information that I'm teaching is available out there for free. And you should never allow money to stop you from learning. Like your absence of money, or even if you're wealthy. I've taught at private schools in California where tuition is very high, right? But if you have a good teacher, it doesn't matter if if the teacher is in a private school, a public school, or it is your neighbor Nancy, right? Your teacher, a good teacher, is going to provide you with the information that sticks and that helps you grow. So if I am not the right teacher for you, say you take this course and you're like, I just don't bond with her, I might not be the right teacher for you, but there might be someone on YouTube, there might be another person that is teaching the same exact subject, and just because I teach it in one way does not mean that it's the right way or only way out there. So always continue to look for people that will teach you the things that you want to learn, because it's available, especially now. Okay, so this was a kind of a simple composition. We had the dynamic, almost like the golden triangle, and we have we're using all the basic shapes, and it does even have a golden spiral feel to it. But all in all, simplicity is the key and the theme for this piece. All right, I will see you in the next one. Take care. Bye.